Welcome back. It's time for Media Watch on France 24, our look at how various world media are reacting to the day's top stories. James Creedon has the latest. Good evening, James.
Good evening, Lana.
It's all about Egypt today, and it's all happening on Twitter, isn't it?
Absolutely, and I suppose it's an interesting way of gauging the temperature of the street to some extent. After Tantawi's speech, the military ruler, a lot of people expressing a degree of cynicism about what he said, and we'll take a look at some of those reactions. Hundreds on foot are entering Tahrir Square from Abdel Monem Rayad past the museum, so giving the directions people are coming from. His speech has further angered people, says this person.
That's really one of the first things we heard. He had barely finished speaking, and what we saw on Twitter was the people aren't happy.
Absolutely, and that seems to have been I suppose the general reaction. You see here people as well transcribing what was being chanted in Tahrir Square, Irha, 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 which means leave, leave, leave. Elsewhere, people also making the comparisons, I suppose, to Mubarak's speeches back in February, saying that the message that he was trying to send was one of either us or chaos. And this person retweeting that, saying, well, we choose chaos. We choose anything but Tantawi. And also this person somewhat, I suppose, humorously saying that it's almost like Tantawi was Mubarak's ghostwriter. So a lot of people seeing shades of those speeches that Mubarak made back in February. And I suppose this I thought was quite funny, even though I didn't fully get the ending. Look at the bright side of things. Since Tantawi is following the same scenario as Mubarak, this means 2 more speeches. And I guess what they mean there.
Mubarak had made 3.
Right, that, 3 strikes and you're out in terms of the speeches that were made back in February by Mubarak. So I suppose a lot of that being expressed, a lot of those comparisons.
There are, however, some dissenting voices, right, in reaction to that speech. Some say some found it pretty appealing.
That's right, and saying, listen, whatever about Tahrir, what about the silent majority out beyond Tahrir Square? This speech may well have appealed to them. And remember, Tantawi didn't even mention Tahrir Square in his speech, so he certainly wasn't addressing the crowd of demonstrators. This person here is saying, Mahmoud Salem is his name, and he's an Egyptian blogger. He's saying that he spoke to people outside of Tahrir. It's unclear from this whether he means immediately outside the square or elsewhere in the city or indeed the country, and saying that the majority liked the Tantawi speech, just an FYI. So there you go. I suppose you know it's important to remember too that those who are tweeting are not necessarily representative of the majority.
Twitter has also been pretty helpful in interpreting what came out of the speech, and one point of uncertainty was whether or not Tantawi actually promised a referendum or whether he simply hinted at it.
Right. This definitely seems to have confused a lot of people, whether or not there will be a referendum about continuing military over a move towards civilian rule. One person here thinking that this is a bid to divide the people. Tantawi is playing chess with us with this referendum move. And saying that he's actually smarter than Mubarak in this bid to divide the people.
Basically.
That this is this person's point of view, that it is a tactical move. So yes, and lots of determination in the streets as well, Lana. You can see that that's, I suppose, what we've seen all weekend. These are the more classic expressions that from the public that we're seeing on Twitter. Don't compare Mubarak and Tantawi's. Oh, that's the one I just read. This has become a war. This is actually the top tweet under hashtag Tahrir at the moment. One side has gas and guns and the other has numbers and will. So one person expressing a lot of determination. We are doing today what should have been done back in February after Mubarak stepped down. So a lot of people expressing to this bid to finish off what was started back at the start of the year, i.e. ending military rule.
And Twitter is really, in that sense, an interesting tool to find out what exactly is going on in the field, on the ground, amid these protesters. And what you see from most of them is really a sense of rejection of the whole political system at the moment.
That's right. There's a lot of people expressing that, saying that this is, a rejection of the body politic in some senses, and people expressing things like, I'm, also pointing out, I suppose, that there's a lot of tear gas on the front line. That's being expressed too, live ammo, but people saying no stages, no political flags. There's no chance any of those parties will exploit us. We are Egypt. So I suppose that was the point that some were trying to get across here, that whether or not it's the military or political parties, such as perhaps the Muslim Brotherhood, trying to piggyback on these protests, that these people here are saying these are our voices. Another person here, this is a journalist expressing from the Pittsburgh Tribune Reviews, who is in Tahrir Square, saying that the youth in Tahrir say their generation won't be silent, and this is the revolution of youth from across the spectrum. Now, it's also being used, of course, as I pointed out a moment ago, to post photos of tear gas canisters. This is a tear gas canister manufactured in the United States, and what you're also seeing online is people posting on their blogs letters that have been written directly to the manufacturers. So it's amazing the extent to which
they're really taking sort of citizen action there.
Absolutely, and I suppose what Twitter is allowing people to do is get very precise information about what is happening on the ground. You know, for example, the manufacturers of the tear gas being used, and also to share with the broader public activism on that basis. People directly contacting the manufacturers in the US. I think it's pretty extraordinary.
Alrighty, so a powerful tool there. Thanks very much for that.
Thanks, Lana.
James Creedon, that was Media Watch. Do stay tuned. Up next is Web News. We take a look at what is creating buzz online today.